Today we're going to be replacing the front motor on an Apollo Go. The tools you'll need to complete this repair are a pair of flush cutters, an adjustable wrench, a 3mm Allen key, and a hot glue gun. So the first thing we're going to do is obviously turn the scooter upside down on our workspace in order to access this control panel here. Using a 3mm Allen key, I'm just going to remove the 4 screws, keeping this in place. They're all loose. You can open it up, see the controller and all the wiring inside. Now there's still more things we need to remove in order to access. First thing is going to be the brackets on top of these forks in order to remove the wheel. So the first thing is we're going to remove these rubber covers that are protecting and hiding the screws. I'm using the smallest Allen key I have. I believe this is a 1.5mm, just to get in and pry these out. There should be 3 on either side of these forks. Now that they're removed on this side, take 3mm Allen key and remove the screws. Now that I've removed those 3 screws, I should be able to just pull this bracket fully off, feeling the metal fork and the wheel nut. Now I need to do the same thing on the other side. Now remove the bracket from the other side. So now I can see the motor cable, its entry into the cavity, the wheel nut securing it to the fork. I have nice access to everything I need to access in order to change this motor. So the next thing that I'm going to do is find the motor cable inside the deck. It will be the cable with these 3 colored phase wires attached to it, as well as this bigger connector. So I can start unplugging these connectors to remove the heat shrink here. I can disconnect. Now our motor is disconnected from our controller inside the deck. So now we can remove this motor cable, disconnected it from the controller. We need to pull it out from this gasket without causing too much damage to the gasket. So what I like to do is pull one part of this cable out at a time. I'm going to start with the phase wires. So I can see this green phase wire here. I'm going to push it from the inside, pull it from out here. Just like that. Next I'm going to do the yellow one. Now the blue one. Next, the white multi-connector. There we go. We did a little bit of damage to the gasket. That's normal. We're going to reseal that up at the end. Our last step to remove the motor completely, we're just going to take an adjustable wrench and start loosening these wheel nuts. Once they're loose, you should be able to pop up the lock washer that's underneath. Doesn't need to come completely off, just needs to be loose. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Once it's loose, I can simply just lift the motor up. We've completely freed it, and we're ready to install our new motor. Before I'm going to reinstall the motor back into its forks, I'm first going to put the motor cable in. This is probably the most troublesome part of this repair. The connectors don't like to go through this gasket. So what we do is we simply push it out, and we're going to make small cut just along the top so we can split. We can get everything inside. And push the gasket back in place. Now I can put the forks in, connect the cable, then we're going to add some hot glue to the inside of this gasket to reseal it. Okay, now we're ready to put the motor back onto the front forks. It's important to note on each side of the motor on its axle, there's the lug nut, the lock washer, and a normal washer. The thinner normal washer will go on the inside of the forks and the lock washer will go on the outside with the lug nut. Now we can drop it in. We also want to be sure our motor cable is on the same side as the gasket for inserting it into the deck. We want to make sure our lock nuts are facing towards the slot on the forks so they can do their job properly. Tighten it on both sides. Now, even if I try, I can't take the motor off of the forks, which is what we want. So now that the motor's in its place, I can finally reconnect the motor cable to the controller, the white connector to the white connector. Make sure you hear it click nicely. And then we're just playing a color match game with these connectors. There's also a little bump on one side and the slot on the other to make sure they stay when they are closed. The blue, green, and yellow. And that is it. Now we're going to push the motor cable in. Not completely, we want some slack so that the wheel can still turn and we can still operate the scooter properly. The next step, we're going to take a hot glue gun and apply some hot glue to the inside of the gasket here because we broke the seal earlier. So the first thing I'm going to do is try and move all the cables I can out of the way just to give myself better access. I'm going to take my glue gun. This is going to be probably almost impossible to see on the video because of the tight space. I'm just going to give it 5 minutes to dry before I continue. It won't have dried completely, but it'll dry enough for us to proceed with the repair. So hopefully you can see here the glue we've applied. It's almost dry. We're applying it to the inside because we want the outside to stay beautiful and pretty. And the inside, we have to do it to maintain the water resistance of the scooter. This obviously being where a lot of electronics happen. We want to maintain the water resistance of this cavity as much as possible. So now we can put the cover over this spot again, the 3mm Allen key. Okay, now our cover's on. We can put the covers of our front forks back. Okay. So you can see on the inside of these panels, there is an indication with an R and L as to which side they belong to. You just need to remember that, of course, the scooter is upside down, so the orientation is a little bit switched. The right and left is always from the perspective of if you're riding the scooter. So if I'm riding the scooter, going forward, this is the right-hand side. Put it on, again, with 3mm Allen key. There's 3 screws. Next, putting the rubber covers on the holes. Making sure they're all nice and flush. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. It's good to know the reason there's a left and right side for this is because the left side has a notch for the motor cable. So when it goes on, the motor cable is going to come out of there. Put it on again with 3mm Allen key. There's 3 screws. And there we go, we've just replaced the front motor on an Apollo Go. So remember, we've just replaced a motor on the scooter. That means we need to do a motor detection. If you don't know how to do that, there is a video available on our channel as well.